repetition. We are seeing chapter 5. But in the beginning of the Pañcadaśī, this mantra is there. And chant it and you can repeat. Om Namah Shri Shankarananda.
Om Namah Shri Shankarananda.
Guru Padam Bhujanmane.
Guru Padam Bhujanmane.
Savilasa Mahamoha.
Savilasa Mahamoha.
Graha Grasaika Karmane. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samapprabha Nirvikhnam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Vamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidparam Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. We are seeing this Pañcadaśī, the first verse of the 5th chapter. Viveka Prakarana is the beginning portion, the first 5 chapters. This is the last of those first 5 chapters. Okay. And yesterday we chanted this first verse of this 5th chapter. Let us see again. We'll chant. Yene kshate shrunotidam.
Yene kshate shrunotidam.
Jikrati vyakaroti cha.
Jikrati vyakaroti cha.
Swadhu vijanati.
Svādu vijanati.
Tatprajnanamudiritam. That is called as prajnanam. Prajnanam udiritam. That by which vijanati, yena vijanati, by which we know. And vyakaroti, by which we speak. And by which we see and hear and all that. In other words, there is something inside which enlivens the entire process of seeing, knowing, hearing, doing, talking, all the in verb, knowing. That is what we have to analyze now. There is something inside which enlivens the entire process of doing, speaking, knowing, talking, walking, all the verbs which we know. And this is the first statement. So, how we know that that's something which enlivens everything? Well, there are people, yesterday I gave the example, there may be cases, or you could try that experiment with a person who has died. His eyes will be there and his tongue will be there, but when you do like that, some people are alive also when you do like that. They don't see or hear or anything. Anyway, so even though the eyes are there, that something is missing. And what is that something? That something is called as consciousness. And consciousness is here called as prajnanam. Prajnanam. Udiritam. Udiritam means it is called, said to be prajnanam. Now that prajnanam we have to study, and we have to study now this whole idea of the way we see and the way we experience things. Because it is talking about experience, isn't it? I'm experiencing colors, I'm experiencing, if all of you say there, sounds, means we are perceiving all sounds and colors and all the different things. So now please pay attention to this one. The subject matter is what? Prajnanam, consciousness. So I say, ordinarily, I am aware of this, conscious of this. So who exactly is conscious of this? When I say, I am conscious of this. We say, well, the mind is conscious, but suppose I close the eyes, no? So this thing is there, right? I close the eyes. No, I am not conscious of it. I didn't close the mind. I close the eyes. So, now the question or the statement that the mind is conscious of this, now that comes into question. That becomes doubtful, no? Who is conscious of it? The eye is conscious of this or the mind is conscious of it? Because when I close the eye, I lost consciousness of it. I lost awareness of it. So we say, no. Now we go back to our Drisya Vivek, for this thing, to perceive this thing, I require, right? But suppose the eyes are there and the mind is not there. Like sometimes, I'm sure all of you would have experienced. You're standing in front of somebody and talking. But your mind is. Or sometimes you're reading a book. And you read 1 page, 2 pages and all. And your mind is somewhere else. You don't know anything that you read, isn't it? So the eyes were there and it was also going nicely along all the lines and everything. But the person is there in front of you talking. Sometimes that is a good thing when that person is just going on talking. Then your mind somewhere else. So anyway, we see instances where the eyes are there, but the mind is not there. You don't see. You know how many times, I'm sure all of you have experienced it. In your house you are looking for something and you find something else. Because while looking, you found another interesting thing, you forgot what you were looking for. The mind gets taken away. So there are experiences where the mind gets taken away, and the sense organs are very much present, but there is no perception of things. You see? So, to perceive something, the senses are required to be there, and also the mind is required to be there. Isn't it? Now, one more, you just study one more case if you go a little bit further. When we go to sleep, close our eyes, we start dreaming. Now dreaming is only going on in the mind, isn't it? So the mind is present. And some people sleep with their eyes open, are you seeing? And you can see their eyes moving like that outside. So anyway, that person's eye could be open. His mind is working in dream, but all the eyes functioning, eyes open and mind working also, but all the things around in the room he doesn't perceive. So the two are present. Still he doesn't perceive. So there is a little bit more to perception than what we ordinarily think about. We don't know, in fact, what ordinarily think about. We don't ordinarily think about this at all. Nobody thinks about this. We just see, oh, nice cloth, where you got it? Nice this, where you got it? We start thinking about other things. But how do we actually perceive? Now, let us inquire about this. What is the verse say? But that by which we see, which we hear, which we taste, which we know, that thing is called as prajnana. that is called as consciousness. So I want to tell you now about how exactly we know. This is in philosophical terms, this is called epistemology. Epistemology is the science of knowing, or the philosophy of knowing. How exactly do we know things? So this is Vedantic epistemology, right? So exactly what happens now? There is, or there are, two characterization of the self. In Vedanta we call the little self and we call big self, or we call as Jiva and Sakshi. These are the two who know, right? So the self, let me tell you in Sanskrit term. The self is called as, or the Atma, now Atma, right? It is called as Sopadhika Atma or Nirupadhika Atma. Now what is the meaning of this thing? The Atma, which is the self, can be seen as with upadhis or conditioning, that's called Sopadhika. Or the Atma can be seen as without upadhis or conditioning, that is called as Nirupadhika Atma. Right? So now, from these two characterizations of the Atma, there are two types of knowing which is possible. One is called as conditioned knowing and the other is called as unconditioned knowing. Conditioned knowing, because Sopadhika, Atma, and unconditioned knowing. Now let us study this thing a little bit more. This Vedanta will not prove to be easy. I know this object, and all of you are saying it also. So we say, I know. That time, who is knowing? The mind is knowing, isn't it? And because all of our minds are different, it's upadhi. Upadhi means condition. All of our minds are different. Everybody will see this thing differently. Correct or not? Because our minds are tinged in different ways. So one person will see it and say, oh, what a cheap looking glasses case. See how many things you see. One person is what a cheap, what an ugly color. So many colors are there, you couldn't get a better one. So when you look at this, every single person will have his own way of seeing, looking, isn't it? Because everybody's mind is different. Now, I say, I see it, I know it, and I say, I know it. In this world, everything like that, we know. I know this, I know this, I know. An amazing thing about a human being is his ability to know with the conditioned mind and the ability also to know unconditionally. And I'll tell you what is the meaning of unconditional knowing now. See, I know it is conditioned knowing, because I know it as black, I know it through the conditioning of the mind. But I know that I know. That is called as unconditioned knowing. Let me give you another example. See, once this is understood through examples and is established first, the other thing should become easier. I know English, somewhat. Go again. I know English. I don't know French. I know English, I don't know French. But see, the wonderful thing about this, I know that I know English, and I know that I don't know French. So basically, what type of being am I? Knowing being, isn't it? I know that I know English, and I know that I don't know French. So what precedes the knowledge of English and precedes the ignorance of French is I know. That I know is called unconditioned knowing. I know English because my mind has been conditioned with English from birth. One Indian fellow, aged 75, he goes and enrolls in a class to learn French. So the teacher asked, at your age, why you came to learn French? Haven't you studied Bhaja Govindam, some practice? At 75, why you came and enrolled to learn French? He said, no, see, my wife and I thought that in this last stage of our life, let us adopt some unfortunate child, maybe we can help them. So we adopted a French baby. So we want to be able to speak with him when he understands. Anyway, this English I know, and I don't know French. But I know that I know English, and I know that I don't know French. So basically, fundamentally, at the deepest level, I am a knowing being. And that knowing occurs without instrumentation, without the instrument of the mind, without the intervention of the mind, without the conditioning of the mind. The English is known through the conditioning of the mind. The French is not known through the conditioning. In other words, the mind suffers ignorance here. Ignorance of French. Here the mind suffers knowledge of English. Because conditioning is a suffering actually. So it is the mind which is conditioned with English and conditioned with ignorance. And it is this mind which is knowing English and not knowing French. Because of those conditioning. The mind suffers something, or the mind is tinged with something. They are tinged with the knowledge of English and tinged with ignorance here. So that mind goes on knowing all the things in this, in the world which we see in front of us. So and that since all of our minds are different, the tinge will be different, you know. See, okay, just now I said I know English. All of us know English now. So when I say I know English, I say you know English. Do we all know English in the same way? I will know half the words you know. Or whatever. You see? So we say we know English and that is just saying. So in the same way when I say I know this, we all know it in our own way. That's why I say everybody live in their own words. That knowing is the first type, that is called the knowing of the jiva. It's called sopadhika knowing, if you want to call it that. Then you're knowing through the upadhi. The atma knowing through the upadhi. The self knowing through the upadhi. And I told you that the self can also know in a direct way without the upadhi, unconditioned knowing. Nirupadhika, atma, knowing directly. At that level, that atma is called a sakshi. In other words, he is just a witness of what is going on without making any judgment or any such thing. just a witness of what is going on. That Sakshi, Atma Sakshi, is what is referred to here as Prajnanam. Now let us look at this from another standpoint. Because the word which is being given here is the word Prajnanam. Prajnanam is consciousness. And through that consciousness we now see. Before we continue, let's see. It is by that consciousness that we know, see, hear, talk, walk, all this. The words given in the verse cover both the Jnana Indriyas and the Karma Indriya. Jnana Indriya is written Yene Kshate Shunoti. Jnana Indriya, Kshate means eyes which seeing, and Shunoti which we hear. So those are Jnana Indriyas. And then Vyakaroti, Vyakaroti means speak. That covers all the Karma Indriyas. And then Vijanati in the next line, that covers the mind. So there are functions going on at the levels of the Jnana Indriyas, there are functions going on at the level of the Karma Indriyas, and there are functions going on at the level of the mind. All of those functions happen only because of that Prajnanam, the consciousness which we are talking about. That consciousness reflects in the mind. That consciousness reflects in the mind. And at that time it is reflecting in the mind, it is called as Chidabhasa. That Prajnanam reflecting in the mind is called as Chidabhasa. Once it reflects in that mind is now able to perceive things. But now since the texture of the mind is different for everybody, we perceive things differently. If that consciousness does not reflect on any mind, that mind will not be able to perceive anything. Now see, like when we see sunlight coming from the sun, right? We don't see 7 colors. We only see white light, isn't it? White light coming. That white light falls on one object, it looks this color. It falls on another object, it looks that color. It falls on another object, it looks that color. See, one white light, like the white light emanating from this bulb is falling on different objects, and all of them look differently, isn't it? Because those of you who study physics and all, you know how that thing works. Certain rays only are reflected and all that, right? So now, the same one white consciousness, so it's like white light, just to add the word, you know. Don't ever think consciousness is white. One white consciousness falling on each mind, because all of our minds are different, makes that mind function differently, because each mind is different. So we perceive the world differently, all of us. Right? So now, that consciousness reflecting in that mind, when it reflects there, its name is called as Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness. Chidabhasa. That is one technical term, right? Once it reflects in that mind, the being who is born, that being is called as Jiva. So this is one way to understand what is a Jiva. So mind means Antakarana, means whatever is inside. Mana Chitta Buddhi Ankara. Mind, memory, intellect, and ego. That's the inner instrument. That, when I use the word mind now, I am referring to Antakarana. That consciousness reflecting in the Antakarana or reflecting in the mind gives birth to a Jiva. In other words, what you have is consciousness which is all-pervasive, consciousness which is intangible, consciousness which is without boundaries or any such thing, coming into contact with a mind which is tangible, coming into contact with a mind which is finite, coming into a mind which is having so many different qualities. So it is as though two completely different things are coming together, or what we call two things which cannot be mixed, like light and darkness. The example which is usually given is the moon reflecting in some water. Now the moon is stationary from our standpoint. We don't see movement in the moon, right? So a stationary thing comes in contact with this water which is moving like that. So now when this one which is not moving comes in contact with the one which is moving, what happens there now? When you look down, you see the moon. You see the moon moving. Now the moon is really not moving. From our standpoint, the moon is just there. But its association with this moving water makes the moon look like it is moving. So here now, this same consciousness which does not know in any particularized way and doesn't have any finitude and consciousness, all the qualities which we ordinarily know, they are not there in consciousness. When it comes in contact with the mind, which has all of these qualities, now we say, I know, I lie, I don't lie, I remember, I do this. It is the mind in association with the consciousness which is doing all of these things. That entity which is born from this association of this chit reflecting in that mind, the entity which is born there, which is now saying, I am knowing. Now remember, if the consciousness is not reflecting in that antakarana, this entity cannot say anything. So that consciousness reflects there is an entity which is born, I know, I am this tall, I am this big, I did this, I did that, I am born here, this is my name, this is my identity. So many things that entity goes on saying. That entity called as jiva. So now, I told, and we go back again to what I was telling you. I can know as a jiva, in which case I say, I know this, I know French, I know English. So that time who is speaking? Jiva is speaking. I know as a jiva, jiva is speaking, I know French, I mean English, I don't know French. Jiva is telling. But when I say, I know that I know English and I know that I don't know French, that time, that knowledge, that type of knowing is called the knowing of sakshi, or the witness of what is actually happening there. There is the witness which sees a mind which is, a witness which is witnessing a mind which is knowledgeable in English and ignorant in French. So that type of knowing we call as unconditioned knowing. That knower is there is the sakshi, and that knower is called as prajnana. So I can know as a jiva and I can know as a sakshi. That sakshi is called as prajnana here. Now please remember, this is only one part of the Mahavakya which is called prajnanam brahma. The Mahavakya which we started yesterday called prajnanam brahma. I told you, now if you missed yesterday's class you might be a little bit lost now. Even if you came to yesterday's class you might be a little bit lost also. Because this is a Vedanta. What is happening? What happened is many of the basic terminologies and all these may not have been exposed to, and I am using a lot of words. But anyway, let us go back over this again. So we can know in two ways. So when it says here now that it is that prajnanam by which we know, by which we know good taste and bad taste, by which we see, by which we hear, by which we speak, it is that prajna. What is being referred to is not knowing as a jiva, but it is unconditioned knowing, knowing as a sakshi, or it is and remember I told you the Sakshi is same, absolute consciousness, infinite consciousness. So, Sakshi is just the witness of a mind which knows English and which is ignorant of French. That Sakshi is being referred to in the verse and in the Mahavakya, not the ordinary knower of a Jiva. I know black and white, and I know high and low, and I know all the Jiva speak like. And then what he knows is different from what the other person knows. And see the same thing, huh? So we're not talking about Jiva knowing, we're talking about Sakshi knowing. That Sakshi is called as Prajnanam, or absolute infinite consciousness. Now, this thing will be taken further, and I will have to tell you more technical terms in the next verse. Because remember, just briefly for those who were not here yesterday, I told that there are 4 Mahavakyas which have been chosen by our rishis, which are representative of all the teachings of the Upanishads. One Mahavakya comes from the Aitreya Upanishad, which belongs to Rig Veda. That is called Prajnanam Brahma. That is the one which we are studying today. Then the second Mahavakya, Aham Brahmasmi, comes from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which belongs to the Yajur Veda. The third Mahavakya is called as Tattvasi Mahavakya, which comes from Chandogya Upanishad of the Sama Veda. And the last is called as Ayam Atma Brahma, which comes from the Mandukya Upanishad of the Atharva Veda. And this chapter has 8 verses dealing with these 4 Mahavakyas. So 2 verses each on each of those Mahavakyas. 2 verses on each of those Mahavakyas. So we started, and this this 5th chapter, which we are studying, and 8 verses, is actually taken by our Vidyadanya Swamiji and from an Upanishad and put here. He did not compose this. It is called a Sukha Rahasya Upanishad. Sukha Rahasya Upanishad is one of the minor Upanishad. He just copied these verses. The 8 verses we are studying. Now some people ask, why not give a citation? Well, there are a number of reasons why we don't give citations. There are many verses which are copied from one scripture to the next, because in Hinduism, some people write in the beginning of their books also. You will see, it is quite common thing. Any part of this book may be copied at leisure. Or even today they write. Otherwise, in the Western world, this copyright sign is there, and you cannot reproduce or copy any part of this book. But in Hinduism, see, it is also there. The knowledge is free and open to everybody. Copy as much as in fact, that's why we have Likhita Japa. So go on copying, writing, whatever you go, write over as much as. And for these students who study Vedanta course, when they do something wrong, we have to punish them, we make them write over Gita. Copying is actually very much promoted in Hinduism. Copy as much as you want. If you copy, you will learn faster. So if Vidyadanya Swamiji is reading Sukha Rahasya Upanishad, oh, nice, let me copy these 8 verses. I'll memorize them. Anyway, it also shows how common the knowledge was at that time, and if I am writing something, everybody knows this already, so there's no need for me to cite anything, isn't it? For a number of reasons. So anyway, Sukha Rahasya, 8 verses dealing with the 4 Mahavakyas, and not today we have seen first of these 8 verses, where it is introducing Prajnanam of the Mahavakya, Prajnanam, Brahma. So the first word which is introduced there is Prajnanam. And I've told you, Prajnanam means what? Sakshi. Prajnanam. It is, if you want to say also, knowledge per se. It is not knowledge of. It is knowledge of this object. Knowledge of English. Knowledge of English. But I know that I know English. That I know is knowledge per se. I know that I am ignorant. That is called knowledge per se. So that knowledge is called as Prajnanam or Sakshi, which is called as Prajnanam. Now these are all technical words which some of you may not be conversant with. So now let me tell you some more ideas by which maybe the next verse might also be understood more easily. Now see, what is this? I introduced just now Sakshi, and then I introduced Jiva also. These words you have heard, right? So it is said that consciousness. Oh, let me give an example for then to bring in these technical terms. Suppose we have a pot here, right? Clay pot. There will be some space in that pot or not? Yes. Just like there is space inside, there will be also space in the pot. The space inside the pot and the space outside the pot is same space or not? Same space, isn't it? See that, eh? No, this is all technical, pure Vedanta thing. The space inside and the space outside is same space. Now here is pot. Then I move the pot. There. The space inside is same. What we don't think is really the space which was encircled by the pot over here. That space remained right here. I moved the pot and now I am encircling this space. I did not move space. Though the pot space remains constant, I did not move space. I moved the pot in space. So each movement like that, I am moving, I am encircling a new amount of space, isn't it? The space remains constant. So this is one thing. Second thing is, the space at any juncture, the space inside the pot and the space outside the pot is always one and same. In other words, the conditioning of the pot, I mean this pot has conditioned this much space. The conditioning of the pot on space does not do anything to space. Space remains as it is. This is called as Upadhi conditioning. Upadhi conditioning. There is a second type of conditioning which is called as Visheshana conditioning. Visheshana conditioning, like when I take some color and I add it to the cloth, it does something to the cloth, isn't it? The condition, I take white cloth and I make it red with some color. So I condition that cloth now, which I cannot reverse the thing now. The conditioning is such that you cannot do it. Now, in the case of the pot and the space, when the pot conditions this space, it does not do anything to the space. So one type of conditioning actually changes the object, and the other type of conditioning doesn't do anything to that object. See the pot and condition this way. Now I move pot. Okay, so just as it is. Nothing happened. When consciousness is conditioned by our mind, consciousness is conditioned by our mind, means now consciousness come in association with the mind, and the consciousness has taken on a finite look. The consciousness has taken on sattva, rajas and tamas, because some people mind sattvic, some people mind rajasic, some people mind tamasic, and some people mind just sick. So when consciousness has just come in contact with that mind and has taken on the tinge of that mind, that type of conditioning, the mind conditioning that consciousness, is of the first type, like the pot conditioning the space. It means it does not do anything to the space. It does not do anything to the consciousness. The consciousness remains same. You please pay attention to all of these things surrounding that consciousness. In other words, consciousness is such, it is like space, that no matter what relationship it gets into with any upadhi, consciousness does not change its nature. In other words, like water, no matter what happens to that water, it takes the form of a wave, it takes solid, liquid, gaseous form, it doesn't matter what form it takes, the water remains as H2O. Its fundamental nature does not change. So consciousness now coming into contact with our mind and now creating a jiva, and the jiva perceiving in whichever way he wants, and does whatever he wants, thinking, memorizing, whatever it does, all his activities, seeing in whichever way he sees. But some people don't see some certain colors and all. That jiva, that mind seeing and experiencing in whichever way, that consciousness never changes its nature. Like the moon coming into contact with moving water and appears to be moving, but the moon is not moving. It appears to be moving. In other words, here the consciousness remains intact as it is. So it is that type of conditioning where the conditioned remains intact. Like the conditioned space remains intact. So now, that consciousness is what is under discussion, and in the next verse, that consciousness is said, it is in me, it is in you, it is in all beings, and that consciousness is now called Brahma. So Prajnanam, Brahma. Brahma means the absolute reality. This is how these two verses resolve this Mahavakya. That consciousness which is there in me, now not at the level of the mind, but behind the mind. It is the same consciousness reflecting in the mind, but it is also behind the mind. It is the same sunlight which is reflecting here, red, yellow, blue, black, all the different colors which we are seeing. But that sunlight is also something apart from all of these blue, black and all that. That's what the white light, that's sunlight. So the same consciousness behind the mind, which is called Prajna, that consciousness is called Brahma also. And that's going to be equated in the next verse. Now this is number 2. See this? Chaturmukhendra deveshu Manushyaśvagatvadishu Chaitanyamekam Brahmataha Prajnanam Brahmamayyapi Chaturmukhe. Chaturmukha means Brahmaji. Brahmaji means not Brahman. See, all these words and all are so confused. You will hear many times 3 words. Let me just make distinction between these 3 words. please learn them properly, because most people are confused about this field. There is Brahma. There is Brahma. See, Brahma, Brahma, and there is Brahman. These three words you will hear all the time. This watch and that watch take different time. No, you don't know the time. 48. This is fast also. That's like 45. I'm just saying. Much faster. Anyway. Brahma, Brahma, and Brahman. When you hear the word Brahma ending in A, long A, it is referring to Brahmaji, who is charged with the responsibility of manifesting this universe. Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. Huh? So that is an actual form of Ishvara, who is charged with manifesting the universe. It's called Brahmaji. So Brahma ending in A. When we hear the word Brahma ending in A, not A, Brahma or Brahman, that is one and same. Brahman is the substantive word, and in Sanskrit, when you start declining words, every word in Sanskrit, every noun will be declined. You will have 24 forms of Brahman. That word will take 24 different forms, which you have to learn by heart in Sanskrit for each noun. So, the first form of that Brahman substantive noun is Brahma. So that is referring to the absolute unconditioned reality. That is not referring to Brahmaji, who is the creator. But here in this first noun, in the beginning, Chaturmukha. Chaturmukha refers to Brahmaji, from Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh. Chaturmukha, because he has 4 heads. He used to have 5. But he got into a little altercation with somebody. He cut off that one. Story. You can go and read that. Anyway, so Chaturmukha Brahmaji, Indra. Indra means the king of the gods in Swarga. In Swarga there are many gods, but they also have a king. He has a cabinet. Some of these fellows he has inducted into his cabinet also. They should all these gods. Then Manushya, Ashwa, Gavadishu, and in men, in horses and in cows. So it is talking about all the higher beings, in man who is in the middle, and then the lower beings, all the animals and all of that. In all of them, Chaitanyam Ekam Brahma. Chaitanyam Ekam Brahma. There is one Chaitanya, one consciousness in all. I mean to say, the consciousness in Brahmaji, the consciousness in Indra, the consciousness in me, the consciousness in a horse and a cow is same one consciousness. In Gita also one tells. There is one consciousness. There are not many consciousnesses. There is one consciousness. And just now I was telling you, there is one consciousness which is reflecting in my mind, reflecting in your mind, and reflecting in everybody's mind. When it reflects, there's where difference is, because you're reflecting surface of different textures. When it reflects, a new being is born, and Jiva is born with personal traits and characteristics, you see. But the consciousness which is reflecting there is one and same. So that is what the first part of the mantra is there. First part of the verse is there. Chaitanyam ekam brahma ataha. Not the next sentence. Ataha means therefore. Prajnanam brahma mai api. Prajnanam brahma. Now see. Just now the word prajnanam had come in the previous verse. Now in this verse, what is coming? It says, the Chaitanya of consciousness in me, consciousness in you, consciousness in the cow, consciousness in the animals, in the gods, in the whoever. That consciousness is Brahma. But just now I was telling it from the previous verse, that consciousness is Sakshi, the deepest me. That's what we just saw or not? That consciousness is at the deepest level, me only. See, I am not merely this body, body mind, body jiva. I am the Sakshi who is witness of all of these things. And that Sakshi, we said, is Prajnanam. So he says here, that Sakshi of Prajnanam is now called as Chaitanya. A different name is given. Chaitanya. Chaitanya means consciousness. That's Chaitanya and Prajnanam are one and same. Another word is used on here. That Chaitanya is called as Brahma. And in the next phrase it says Prajnanam Brahma. That is the Mahavakya. Prajnanam Brahma. So the consciousness which is in me is Brahma. It is the infinite consciousness. In other words, the consciousness which is in me is not something which is only present in me, but it is infinite. That is exactly now like this. Remember just now I told you, this pot is there in space and the pot is moving in space. Each time it is encircling some new space, isn't it? And I move the pot wherever, it is conditioning a different portion of space. I move it from here and here. Now it is conditioning this space. I bring it back, it is conditioning this space. And that space remains there. In the very same way, this Antakarana or this mind and intellect is moving in the medium of consciousness. Consciousness. We don't have to meet consciousness when we go somewhere. Consciousness is already there. And the mind and intellect is being enlivened by consciousness wherever it goes. The mind and intellect is enlivened, and it doesn't have to worry about oh, when I go there, I wonder if consciousness will be there. Suppose I go there and consciousness is not there. I will drop dead. Because there will be no consciousness to enliven my mind and intellect. No, consciousness being all pervasive, and I am moving like a fish in the truth. That's described like a fish. I am moving like a fish in water. I am moving in the medium of consciousness. Now see, when we start using all of these words, anything has to be clarified, you know. You see, I am moving in the medium of consciousness. Here, I am consciousness. You see, the words have their limitation. So now what we have to change that statement. I am moving in the medium of consciousness. The mind and intellect is moving in me. The mind and intellect is moving in me because I am not the mind and intellect, I am the consciousness. And the consciousness is here described as Brahma, the absolute reality. So, mind and intellect are moving in me. I am the enlivener of mind and intellect. The enlivener, which is the consciousness, has now gone into the mind and intellect and identified with the mind and intellect and is living as a prisoner as though in the mind and intellect and saying, now I am the mind and intellect. Therefore, I use the first statement. I am moving in the medium of consciousness. You end up with wrong statements like that. Because the consciousness gone into the mind and intellect, identified with the mind and intellect, which are limited, finite, small. And now he said, I am, that's why people say, I am tall, I am small, I am thin, I am fat, I am dark, I am Indian, I am African. But that's why he's identifying with the whole. Really speaking, I am pure consciousness. So now, while at the same time we are resolving the Mahavakya, the use of the two verses, we have to remember also, resolution of Mahavakya is not our goal. Please remember this thing. Resolution of the Mahavakya of the Upanishad is not our goal. Our goal is to disidentify with the mind and intellect. I mean, right now I am taking myself to be mind and intellect. To disidentify with mind and intellect and to identify with Prajnana, which is Brahma. Consciousness, which is the absolute infinite reality. So to shift my attention, to lift my identification from a finite jiva to an infinite consciousness, reality. This is the goal, huh? And by no means the mind and intellect. So the consciousness in me which knows without instrumentation, or which is the knowing principle, or which is knowledge per se, that consciousness which is in me, which is in all creatures, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, and all the animals and everything, that consciousness is Brahma. It is absolute reality. In other words, I am the absolute reality. This is the conclusion of this statement. So Prajnana, which is the consciousness in me, is Brahma. So this is the first Mahavakya. Tomorrow now we'll continue seeing the second part. Aham Brahmasmi takes us one step further. We'll have class all the days except Sunday. Sunday morning satsang upstairs will go on like normal. At 9:10 a.m. we'll have a meeting of all members of the commission, all people, executive, non-executive, everybody, exclusive, non-exclusive. Everybody associated with Chinmaya Mission will have, we don't have exclusive and non-exclusive and all that. We just have different people doing seva, that is best. All sevaks and sevikas and all at the 9:10 on Sunday morning on 19th of April.